You bought the low sofa. You added the paper lantern. You found a linen throw in the right shade of nothing, and the room still feels off. Not cluttered exactly, not wrong exactly, just unsettled in a way you can't name. Japandi gets described as a mood, serene, warm, minimal. The problem is that a mood can't tell you what to fix. This video breaks the style into 12 rules, each one checkable in your own room. They cover proportion, light, material, and one of them is about a single plant. Run your room against all 12, and you'll almost always find the 2 or 3 that are quietly breaking it. Rule 1, the 2-wood rule. A Japandi room holds to 2 wood tones, one dominant, one accent, never 4 or 5. Your eye reads wood exactly the way it reads paint color. 5 different wood finishes in one room is the visual equivalent of 5 different paint colors on the walls. The calm you're after comes directly from a narrow material vocabulary, and mixing tones without a clear logic is one of the fastest ways to make a room read chaotic instead of layered. The dominant tone should come from the largest wooden surface, usually the floor or the biggest piece of furniture if the floor isn't wood, and it should carry roughly 2/3 of the visible wood in the room. The accent needs to differ in depth, not in temperature. Light white oak paired with mid-brown walnut works because both sit in the same warm undertone family. What breaks the pairing is an undertone clash. Warm honey oak next to a gray-washed driftwood finish reads like furniture from 2 different houses. If your floor is builder-grade orange oak, that is your dominant tone whether you chose it or not. Work with it. Pick your accent to complement it, and the 2-wood system holds. Rule 2, the empty surface ratio. Keep the clear majority of every horizontal surface empty. The calm in a Japandi room isn't an aesthetic, it's a measurable amount of nothing. Every object on a table, shelf, or counter is a point your eye has to land on and process. Enough of them and the room becomes a field of small demands. Empty surface is what gives the eye somewhere to rest. A nearly bare console can feel more considered than a carefully styled one. Collections of small objects undermine this look more than almost any other mistake. One ceramic bowl on a sideboard reads as intentional. 7 little objects read as a shelf you haven't dealt with yet. The working method is simple. Clear each surface completely. Live with it bare for a day. Then return 1 to 3 pieces, varied in height, unified in palette. Be strictest on the surfaces you see first from the doorway. The hardest test in the house is the coffee table. 1 tray, 1 object on it, done. Rule 3, the low line rule. Japandi furniture sits lower than standard Western furniture, and the pieces relate to each other in height. This comes from the Japanese tradition of living close to the floor, but the reason it works is perceptual. Lower furniture drops the room's visual horizon, which leaves more open wall above every piece. More visible wall reads as more space and more height. The room feels taller and quieter without changing a single structural thing. A low-back sofa, a platform-style bed, a media console that runs long and wide rather than tall. Those are the shapes you're after. Consistency matters more than any single piece. One tall wingback chair in a room of low furniture doesn't read as contrast, it reads as a chaperone. Stand in the doorway and note where the top of each piece hits the wall. Those points should sit within a fairly narrow band, all the way around the room. If they jump around like a skyline, the low-line rule is being broken, and the room will feel it even if the viewer can't say why. Rule 4, the warm neutral test. If your neutrals lean blue, the room will never feel Japandi. This is the single most common failure, and it's almost always imported without noticing. Scandinavian interiors drifted cool gray through the 2010s, and that palette became the default for anyone reaching for minimalist. But cool gray next to warm wood is a chemistry problem. The gray makes the oak look brassy. The oak makes the gray look clinical. The whole room lands somewhere near hotel lobby. The same white oak against a warm grayish wall suddenly looks like it belongs. The fix is an undertone check before any neutral enters the room. Hold the paint chip or the fabric swatch against a sheet of pure white printer paper and ask which way it leans. Japandi neutrals lean yellow, red, or soft brown. If it leans blue or violet, it's out, no matter how good it looked on screen. A warm grayish or a warm white is the neighborhood you're shopping in. Sample it on the actual wall. North-facing light cools every color roughly a step. And the test isn't only for paint. The rug takes it, the sofa fabric takes it, the bedding takes it. Rule 5, the 2700K rule. 2700K is the Japandi default for every bulb in a living space. Light temperature washes across every surface at once, which is why it does more work than any single object you could buy. A 4000K daylight bulb pushes warm neutrals toward gray after dark, meaning you can pass the warm neutral test at the paint store and fail it at the lighting aisle for the price of a six-pack of bulbs. 2700K belongs in living rooms, bedrooms, and dining spaces. 3000K is the furthest you go for areas where task clarity genuinely matters, over a kitchen counter, at a bathroom mirror. Anything above that has no place in this style. The audit takes 10 minutes. Check every bulb in the room, including the ones you forget, the range hood, the closet, that one lamp from your last apartment. Keep a single temperature per sightline. Mixed temperatures read as a mistake, even to people who cannot name what's wrong. For fixtures, something that diffuses rather than glares finishes the job. A paper or fabric shade softens 2700K into exactly the glow this style is known for. Rule 6, texture instead of pattern. Japandi carries its visual interest through texture, not pattern. The reason has to do with how the eye handles each one. Pattern is printed contrast, a high-frequency signal your eye keeps rescanning no matter how long you've owned the pillow. Texture only shows itself through light falling across a surface, so it reads as depth rather than noise. A room can be rich in texture and still feel silent. It cannot be rich in pattern and feel silent. The material list is short: washed linen, raw or rift-sawn wood, stone, unglazed clay, paper, wool. Aim for 3 or 4 distinct textures in a room and put contrast between them. Something nubby against something smooth, something soft against something hard. That contrast is what patterned throw pillows were trying to do anyway. Texture does the same job without the static. This is also how the style handles seasonal shifts. You swap textures, not motifs. Heavier wool and a darker clay vessel carry a room into autumn without a single decorative motif in sight. Quick pause. 6 rules down, 6 to go. Everything so far you can check by looking. The rest of it needs numbers, and numbers are the one thing a video is bad at. So I wrote them all down. The Japandi interior design formula is a 129-page workbook. Every one of the 12 rules with the measurement that settles it. 5 palette cards carrying real Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, Farrow Ball and Behr codes with their light reflectance values, and a 15-minute audit you walk your own room with, scoring each rule pass or fail. It's print ready and it's linked in the description. Now, Rule 7. Rule 7, the single run rule. One material carries across a plane instead of breaking at every edge. Every material change is an edge your eye has to register, and rooms accumulate dozens of them by default. Flooring transitions at doorways, a backsplash that stops mid-wall, a counter in one stone and an island in another. Each break chops the plane into pieces. A continuous run reads as intentional, and it reads as larger because the eye measures the sweep instead of the segments. Where to apply it? Let flooring continue through connected spaces instead of switching at thresholds. Run the counter material up as the backsplash rather than introducing a second tile. Treat a window wall as one plane, a single fabric across it, not a patchwork of blinds and panels. Breaks are not banned, they're rationed. A material may change where function or level genuinely changes, a step, a wet zone, not merely because a surface happened to end. Every break you can remove from a room is one less edge the eye has to work against. Rule 8, the Wabi-Sabi boundary. Intentional imperfection is not the same thing as unfinished, and the line between them is where a lot of Japandi rooms quietly fail. Wabi-Sabi honors what a material earns over time: the patina on oiled wood, the irregular edge of a hand-thrown bowl, the slub in woven linen, the way stone wears where hands touch it. Those marks carry information about age and use, and the eye reads them as depth. Neglect carries different information: chipped laminate, a wobbling chair leg, frayed synthetic fabric, paint scuffs on a hollow core door. These are flaws of maintenance, not of material, and no amount of styling reframes them. The test is one question, asked object by object. Would repairing this remove character or restore it? Sanding down a hand-planed tabletop would remove character, leave it. Re-gluing the wobbly chair leg restores it to what it's supposed to be. Fix it. Imperfection earns its place in this style only when the material did the earning. Walk your whole room with that question and the boundary becomes obvious. Rule 9, the one plant rule. One sculptural plant per room. Density is the mistake. This runs against most decorating instincts, where plants are treated as a category you can't overdo. But the eye handles greenery the same way it handles everything else in this style. A single specimen with visible branch structure reads as an object. It has a silhouette, and it has negative space around it. 8 plants read as biomass, and biomass is clutter that happens to be alive. The logic borrows from ikebana, the Japanese practice of flower arrangement, where a single branch is composed for its line rather than its volume. What matters is that the plant has structure you can see through, an articulated trunk, spaced branches, air between the leaves, not a dense mound of foliage. Place it against a plain wall where the silhouette can register, near the light it actually needs, and let it stand alone. If you genuinely love plants, rotate them seasonally rather than accumulating, one at a time on stage, the rest in the wings. Rule 10, hardware discipline. Visible hardware is the fastest way to break a Japandi room. Cabinet pulls, hinges, switch plates, and cord tangles are small, shiny, and high contrast, which makes each one a focal point, whether you intended it or not. A kitchen with 20 polished handles has 20 tiny highlights competing for attention. Japandi cabinetry is meant to read as planes of material, and every glinting fitting punches a hole in that plane. The discipline runs in order: remove, then integrate, then quiet. Remove what nothing requires: decorative knobs on doors that could open with a push latch, hooks holding nothing. Integrate where you're choosing new pieces: handleless fronts, routed finger pulls, hardware cut from the same material as the door. Where hardware must stay visible, make it matte, keep one metal finish per room, and choose a tone that sits close to the door color rather than contrasting with it. This is also the cheapest rule on the list to act on. Swapping cabinet pulls is an afternoon and a screwdriver, and it changes how the whole kitchen reads. Rule 11, the floor-to-wall step. Floor and wall need a specific, measurable amount of contrast between them. Too close reads flat, too far reads stark. The junction where floor meets wall is the longest continuous line in any room, so the eye keeps returning to it. When floor and wall sit at nearly the same depth, the line disappears and the room becomes a seamless, slightly disorienting box. When the gap is huge, an espresso floor against a bright white wall, the line becomes a hard horizon running the whole perimeter, and hard lines are exactly what this style spends its energy removing. The target is a visible but gentle step, with the wall lighter than the floor. The classic Japandi arrangement, a mid-tone oak floor under a light warm neutral wall, lands in this range almost automatically, which is part of why it became the style's signature. Here is the check. Photograph your room in black and white. If you can't find the line where floor becomes wall, you're too close. If the line is the first thing you see, you're too far. Adjust from the wall side. Paint moves easier than flooring. Rule 12, high mount linen. Curtains mount high and hang to the floor. The window gets treated as taller than it actually is. The eye doesn't measure the glass, it measures the fabric column. Wherever the rod sits becomes the window's perceived height. Mounted on the frame, curtains make a window look squat and interrupt the wall. Mounted high, the same window pulls the whole wall upward. The standard is to place the rod closer to the ceiling than to the frame. For an ordinary 8-foot ceiling, that means within a few inches of the ceiling line, not resting on the trim. Let the rod run wider than the frame on each side too, so the open panels stack against wall instead of covering glass. The window reads wider, and the room gets more of its own daylight. The fabric is linen for a reason. It has enough body to hang in clean folds and enough openness to filter light rather than block it, and under 2700K it glows. Length matters as much as height. Panels should just reach the floor. Hovering hems undo the entire effect you mounted high to get. Before the last part, if you want the version of this you can actually fill in, it's called the Japandi Interior Design Formula. Inside, the 12-rule audit scorecard. So one walk of the room tells you exactly which rules you're failing. A fix order sorted by cost, because the cheapest fixes are usually the ones that change the most. 4-room playbooks: living room, bedroom, dining room, kitchen, each naming the 3 rules that decide that room. 5 palette cards with real brand codes, including one built entirely from a single hardware store aisle. 7 measured diagrams, and 13 tear-out cards printed clean so a home printer can handle them. It's a one-time download, yours to keep. The link is in the description. Not all 12 rules cost the same, and 2 of them do most of the heavy lifting for the least money. Run the warm neutral test and the 2700K rule first. A few sample pots of paint and a 6-pack of warm bulbs come in under $50, and between them they control the 2 things your eye cannot stop processing: the color of every surface and the temperature of the light hitting it. Most rooms that don't feel Japandi are failing one of those 2, not the furniture. Once the base is warm, work down the free rules. Clear your surfaces, check your wood tones, walk the Wabi-Sabi boundary. Which of these 12 do you think your room is failing right now? Leave it in the comments. I'm curious. If this kind of specific, rule-based approach to design is useful to you, subscribing means you won't miss the next one.